お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Now let's start with the skill tree. For first, puncture, enhanced puncture, and fundamental puncture, and that's just because to get the vulnerability on the basic attacks. For cooldown reduction, I'm using twisting blades, enhanced, and advanced. For survivability here, I'm using sturdy and siphoning strikes. I think those works really good with this build. If you go down to agility, I'm using weapon mastery and then concussive and trick attacks. And this one works really well with the knockdown we get from the poison trap. And the poison trap, the thing I think is the most important here is to get this one, countering poison trap. So we have a chance to reset our cooldown of our imbuement skill. So this one you can, if you want more damage or something like that, just put in more, but I have 4. And as you can see, I have item contribution +3 there. And then we get to this one, exploit. You deal 18% increased damage to health and injured enemies. Really good, like good damage in the start, good damage in the end. And then we have malice, and you see you deal 12% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and we will make enemies vulnerable with the basic fundamental puncture. If we then go down to the imbuement, I'm using precision imbuement. Your skill gains 9% increased critical strike chance, and then I try to max out as much as I can on the poison imbuement. And here you can choose, but I think what's worked best for me is this one, mixed poison imbuement. So I have like 30% chance to apply double the amount of poison damage, which is really good. And then we have more crit to poison damage, and then I have this one also because everything is gonna get poisoned, so you get 10% less damage from that. And then we come to our ultimate, and I'm using Shadow Clone, and then Prime Shadow Clone and Supreme Shadow Clone for the extra damage. Here you can pick and choose, but I picked Alchemist Fortune on 2 of those instead of 3 or 1, and then I have 1 here to have 10% chance to gain some energy. This one is really good to have. Your poison trap and death trap activates more crit and chance against vulnerable crowd control enemies for 4 seconds. This is really good. And for last, I'm using exposure, this one. So we start with the helmet. I'm not gonna go through all the stats and everything on the gear because I know that I don't have like the best stats on it, but I'm trying to do the best. But if we check here, we got an aspect. When you hit the crowd control enemy, there's up to 30% chance that crowd control effect spreads to another affected enemy. So this is really good when there's a lot of enemies and you can maybe put down 1 trap, but everything gets that almost. So they just trigger each other. Really good. On the chest, you see here, damaging an elite grants you a barrier, absorbing 3,273 damage for 10 seconds. Really good. Here is one of the key aspects that you need to have on this build to get it to work like perfectly. Poison trap no longer breaks stealth, and you trigger no cooldown or arm time while you are in stealth. All poison trap activation exits stealth, and poison trap cooldown is 6 seconds per trap placed. So this is also really good. If we then go down here to my legs, you see that I have this aspect that I get as this works really good with poison because poison ticks. So as many enemies you can like track the poison to, you will get like 100 stacks in maybe 2 or 3 seconds. So really good for survivability. This one I'm just using right now. I might change this out just to have a little more survival. Have actually another aspect that I want to use on this one. And here we have the twisting blades, and that's one of the earliest aspects you can like just get into a dungeon, and this really works with the AoE with the poison imbuement. If we then go to the neck, you see here, dealing direct damage to enemies affected by your trap skills have up to 72 chance to make them vulnerable. And as we got through in like the skill tree, we do a lot more damage to enemies when they're vulnerable, so we need more things to make them vulnerable. And here we have also, this is really good, this is one of the new ones that I've just got. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 50% increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds. So a lot of things is going to be vulnerable, and when they die you're going to get like instant regen back, so it's really good. This is also one of the key components to this build. Your shadow clones also mimic your imbuements, so the poison imbuement and the traps and everything. So this is really good and really fun to play with. And then on this is the last, I think, key component or aspect to this build. If I critically strike with poison imbuement, I get like a little pool that I can stand on, and then I have no cooldown on the poison imbuement, and I can just spam that shit on bosses and everything. And to get more imbuement damage, I'm using this one. Your imbuement skill effect has 20% increased potency against vulnerable enemies. So we're gonna make everything vulnerable, and then we can just nuke everything down. And for specialization, I'm using preparation. So I get more cooldown reduction on my ultimate skill, and if I don't have any traps or imbuement or anything, I can use my shadow clone to reset all my cooldown to just go again, and that's the loop I'm playing with. And now over to the Paragon levels. I've mixed and matched this kind of a lot, but the thing that works best for me, you can just choose whatever you want here, but the glyph I was using is this one. While wielding a melee weapon, you take 10% reduced damage, and then you can see that I also got the cutthroat skill damage on it. So that's the one I'm using, and I have all the yellow ones I can use. And when I cleared the capstone level 70 capstone dungeon, the Fallen Temple, I was level 60, but I had this one in my Paragon. So I tried to get to this one, so I got more resistance when I use my imbuement skills, and even get more damage of it. And then I just went up here to these. You can just pause the video if you want to do the exact same thing. But this one has been really great now when I'm above level 70. So as you can see, I get 7.5 imbuement skill damage, and then you see under it, imbuement skill effects have 20% increased potency. And I also grants 25 bonus to all rare nodes within range. So if we then go to this yellow one up here, you can see that I have 37.5% the imbuement skill damage. So this works perfectly. So that's the Paragon levels that I've been using right now. So if you just want to do the same, just pause the video and check what I've put in. So now one would use concealment. So like we see this pack over here, I'm just gonna pop invisible, put down 4 traps, and now nuke. And as you can see, I get the poison imbuement like almost all the time. So I can just nuke it. Ready. And if I want to do even more damage, like it's a big pack, you can do this. Shadow Clone, Stealth, and then your Shadow Clone starts putting down traps as well, for even more damage and crowd control. And like, that's the build. So try to have that on rotation, and try to get every cooldown back as fast as possible.